Hi, friends. Welcome to Digging Deep, a podcast brought to you by Motivo, where we unearth stories that bring us closer. I'm Rachel, joined by Dr. Carla, and together we are going to explore our shared experiences and what it means to be human.
We'll have conversations with clinicians, activists, and everyday heroes who share their wisdom. These discussions challenge our perspectives and ignite a spark for positive change. We'll explore love, loss, resilience, growth, and the power of human connection.
And we'll do so with humility, knowing that we are not the experts, but simply fellow explorers seeking to learn alongside you.
Digging Deep is more than a podcast. It's a community. Let's learn, grow, and support one another. So grab a cup of tea, find a cozy spot, and let's explore the heart of being human. Welcome to Digging Deep.
Hi, friend.
Hi. I was frozen on a smile face.
Yeah, don't you love that? It's like that like, oh shit moment. It's like, is it happening? Is it happening? Should I just be patient?
Yep. I love technical difficulties. Each time they make my anxiety like spike.
Right. It's like, here goes the blood pressure. Oh, but no, it's fine. 2 seconds later, it's fine.
It's fine.
I didn't ask you about this. You just got back from getting a massage, didn't you?
I
How
did.
was it?
I was just telling Sean that I feel like it's a bad idea to do it in the morning because I'm like so relaxed. I want to take a nap and I don't even care about the fact that I'm just like, I want to be sleeping right now.
I think you should lean into that. I don't know if you have a full day. I have a full day, but like,
Full day.
You do? Oh, okay. Well,
full of meetings, fun Friday meetings that I hopefully don't yawn in.
That's right. Yes. I mean, why are massages like the best thing in the world?
I don't know. I think Motivo's self-care stipend is like the thing that is like forcing me to take care of myself. And I schedule a monthly massage.
Love it.
And I like schedule around it and I don't cancel it.
Is it 60 minutes or 90 minutes?
It's 60 minutes, but I really do like need to like, do 90 sometimes.
You got to do the 90. Yeah. I mean, my massage therapist, he's a man and he's always like this like older guy. And he's like, at the end of everyone, he's like, 90 minutes goes fast when you're on the massage table. He says it at the end of every massage. 90 minutes goes fast. I prefer, this is like irrelevant. I prefer male massage therapists. I don't know how you feel about that. Yeah, I do. And I think it's like, I think people need to know that it's slightly better because women, we use our elbows. I mean, it's just like, here comes the elbows,
Mine, shout out to Victoria, does not actually use her elbows.
She doesn't?
So I get a Himalayan salt hot stone.
What?
Yeah. And so she uses the stones and they're like so hot and they're so relaxing.
That's enough to come to Maryland. Can you hook me up with Victoria?
Yes. Oh, we'll make it like a day. Okay.
I like that. Okay, that's good. Right. We digress. We should get into our topic, I guess.
Do it. We're talking about what are we talking about? Successful, meaningful interracial friendships. And I think this came up, simply just because of our friendship. And I think we have such a good time, like reflecting on what's so meaningful about our friendship. And I really do get a kick out of like thinking about the progression. And it's such a unique friendship, in my eyes, because I think that, I just feel so comfortable talking about everything and like bringing my whole self into our friendship. And that's like something that I don't necessarily, I haven't had often, but especially when I think about kind of some of the barriers to closeness
Mm.
in interracial friendship, there can be, more of a there could be more of a focus on the differences than the similarities. And I think we do a really great job of holding space for both now in, this era of our friendship.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed. I love that. I actually love that we called it meaningful rather than successful, because I think successful makes it sound like, didn't we do great? That was easy. We did it. We have achieved friendship, and we did it. And I think
Yep.
meaningful is more accurate, because I don't think it's always been easy, I think we both have had to kind of overcome some of our own hurdles and do like some of our own work. I know at least I have, and
Yeah.
that's what has made it meaningful. Not just the
Yeah.
fact that it was like, oh, we did great. Go us.
Absolutely. We can't write the book on successful interracial friendships, but I think that we have a really meaningful one. So, tell us more about how you're feeling about this conversation today. I think discussions about race in general are hard. But I mean, and especially, maybe even especially among friends.
Mm.
Just because it is a thing that if there is a difference, if there's a racial difference, and there are racialized experiences that, we talk about and share, it could be a really like uncomfortable or, difficult journey. So, how are you feeling about this
Yeah.
conversation?
I think that that's like kind of the perfect way to start it, because I think, it's interesting. Like, yes, I agree that talking amongst friends about race can be difficult, but then I think also talking publicly as like a white woman about race can be like difficult as well. And I think part of the reason for that is that I think one of the things, at least I've experienced as a white woman, is that there's like this deep desire to like be well thought of and like get it right in my words. And like, what I notice is that there just is like all this ego that comes into it, and this kind of like centering my own experience of like, how are people going to think about me? Does this put me in a good light or a negative light? And I actually think that is something that a lot of white women deal with. A lot of my white women friends talk about this, like that just desire to kind of be liked. And what I mean, nobody wants to be thought of as like a racist, right? Like, of course, but like there's like this other kind of pressure that I think we put on ourselves to like use all the right words.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that that's like not helpful to the process. I think like what I want to do in coming into this conversation is to be like vulnerable and open, and whatever that, maybe there's more for me to like learn today. I hope there always is, like from
Mhm.
all of our conversations. And it's like, it's kind of like one of those things of like, why would this conversation be any different than any other topic that we talk about that's hard, that's challenging, that we've like had good experiences with, that we've had negative experiences with? So
Yeah.
I want to come into the conversation the same way I do all of it, which is just openness, ready to talk, ready to dive in and just share, kind of like leaving my ego at the door. Yeah, that's how I'm feeling. How are you
Yeah.
feeling?
Good. I actually am really excited to kind of dig in deep here for a lot of the same reasons. I think that we tend not to talk about race again among friends because we don't want to say the wrong thing. And I think, there have been plenty of times where, in my own interracial friendships, with various, just diverse races of people, that, I've kind of said the wrong thing or I've made assumptions, and we don't want to, show that we have bias, but, we kind of do. Right. And I think that safety is such an important aspect of friendships where you get the chance to like fail, you get the chance to say the wrong thing, you get the chance to like, apologize and make repair, and or to like ask questions and be curious and to celebrate and to learn something new. So there's so much lost when we don't have hard conversations, and just the simple fact of talking about race is just really hard. And I haven't really had much chance to, have safety to have conversations like this. And
Mhm.
that's why I think that, our friendship is so unique in my life, because of the fact that, we just kind of get a chance to talk about everything. And,
Agreed.
there's just been a really important journey about being vulnerable and
Mhm.
kind of managing the humanity that we both experience.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. I know the Virginia Satir quote is later in our agenda, but I feel that I'm like dying for you to say it because
yes.
I feel like it is the theme. Like, will you share it?
Yeah, absolutely. Sean and I were just talking about this too. So Virginia Satir, one of the pioneers of family therapy, social worker by trade, said, "In our sameness, we connect. In our differences, we grow." And I like live by this in not only friendships, but also as we talk about our differences and similarities. I think one of the things that makes our friendship so great is that there's so much similarity. Like
Mhm.
there's so much that overlaps, but there are also, differences in our personalities. There's also differences in our lived experiences. And I think by sharing those things, I especially grow, as I learn more about you and just, your walk in life. I'm glad that you brought that up, because that is
100%. That
that
it
is the
is the thing, right? And it is just like so true. And I think it's been so true of our friendship and what has made it meaningful. So let me ask you, just kind of like backing up a little bit, like in the past, what challenges have you just personally faced when, having interracial friendships, and like, how did you overcome those?
Yeah. So in many of my interracial friendships where, like black, white interracial friendships, I've felt largely unseen as a black woman. I haven't necessarily had spaces to kind of like enter as my whole self, and my racial identity is a huge part of who I am. It's a huge part of not only my lived experiences, but also just like what I love and appreciate about myself. I have like a huge sense of culture, and so there are times where I felt that I couldn't just kind of enter wholly, where I was just kind of seen maybe as a woman, or I was more so seen as a friend, that maybe even the person that I was building a friendship with would be a person that would say that they don't see color.
Mm.
And that's such a hard place, because as we know, being colorblind is not actually the goal. Like, I really want you to see that about me. And so there I think for a long time, and probably well before college, when I myself started to like engage with people of all different types of like cultural backgrounds, I just had this like really intense sense of isolation, where there just wasn't a place for all of the experiences that were unique to me, and not that that other person.
Mhm.
um, and like maybe even not an interest in that part of myself and that identity. I think to your second question of like how have I overcome it, as I get older, I'm just like I have a natural tendency to really only stay in friendships that serve me. Like, I'm completely okay with having like, 2 to 3 people who I am close friends with. And And so I just don't try to keep friendships where where I'm isolated, or I don't feel like I belong, or that I'm not completely seen. And that makes it really easy, right? Like I am able to just kind of say, like, can I serve this person by seeing them, by asking them questions about who they are, learning about their lived experiences? Am I growing from, them and from our differences, or not? And if not, then fine. We get to kind of like move on in life. And I think that thought process has greatly just freed me from being in places or relationships, friendships, that I just wasn't getting anything out of it.
And that's, I feel like, one of the areas that we are same, in the sense that, like, both, like, I also think, I don't know how many other people experience this, but I also feel like that COVID had something to do with that for me, of like wanting to like kind of have a closer circle of like the time that I do spend socially. Who do I
Yeah.
want it to be with? And,
Right.
like, is it enriching? Is it helping me grow? If it's not, I just like, I don't know. It's hard for me to continue to engage. But I wanted to come back to what you said about that phrase, I don't see color, because I think that there's probably people maybe who's listening to this who like, I've said that before. I think the intention behind a statement like that is like, I see everybody, I see the humanity in people, but it sounds to me like it's also said, like, if you're saying so much of who you are is a Black woman, and someone is saying to you, I don't see color. It's like, I'm not seeing who you really are. Is that how it lands with you?
Yeah, 100%. You're not seeing me at all then, because like, I'm not just a woman, I'm not just, therapist. Whatever it is that connects us. Like, if there is sameness and we feel connected in that, that's not all of who I am. There are other things about me. I think that is such a like the point about COVID and how that kind of changed like our perception of who we wanted to give our time to, is such an interesting like shift, because I also felt that same shift as well during COVID. And I think actually it was during COVID that we, started to really like reignite, our friendship, and like actually focus on our friendship. So we actually were having a conversation about kind of like what we call like two eras of our friendship, like 1.0, 2.0 of really our relationship, because it started out as a working relationship and then morphed, I think, even after we started working together the first time, into a friendship. So, one was in 2018 when we worked together for a bit, and then the second, really did begin to grow in 2020 with Marco Polo, our favorite. And then, just kind of like transitioned into, when I returned to Motivo in 2022. So let's talk a little bit about the difference in the two eras and how that shaped our friendship.
Yeah. I feel like our friendship could be sponsored by Marco Polo. Like our podcast, like it can't be overstated how much Marco Polo impacted not just my friendship with you, but actually my friendship with a few people that actually I was just talking to. We have a new hire at Motivo, John, and we were just talking about the other John. I have to say the other John because we already have one John, so this is the other John. And we were talking about like, just like, how COVID helped you be able to connect with people that you used to be close friends with. But it's like such like a weird mind thing, because it's like, you could have been friends with those people before COVID, phone, email, Zoom, Hangout, whatever. But it's like COVID like prompted us, at least for me, to revisit friendships that were meaningful at one part of my life. And like those friendships have continued on, in the sense that like, it's like geography doesn't matter as much when it comes to like who you are living life with. So yeah, shout out to Marco Polo. I love it for that reason. But yeah, two eras. I mean, and that's what I think that, I want to think back to when I think about like successful, interracial friendship versus like meaningful, because I think that the first time, it wasn't as successful. And I was like reflecting on like why that was. And I think, you know, one of the things I was thinking about is like just how much was going on for us individually at that time. You were going through a bit of a fertility journey. I had kind of the shit had hit the fan in my life in like a pretty, you know, brutal way. And so it was a hard time for me. I was brand new to, you know, just had started Motivo. You were maybe like the third employee at the time you came in 2018. I didn't know how to like lead a company at all. I didn't know what I was doing, you know, like, and I was just talking to an entrepreneur about this the other day. She's pretty early stage, and she was just, I could sense like the stress that she was feeling. And I was like, I just want you to know this part right here that you're in is the worst fucking part. Like, it's so getting something going in those like days when like phone's not ringing, no emails are coming through, you're spending all this time and money on the company, and you're seeing no impact of of all this hard work. Nothing's happening yet, right? So I was like in that place. And I think that, like, you know, I hadn't done a lot of work just really on myself, you know? And what I feel like then what happened is like, one, I was going through my own kind of recovery journey from like some trauma that I had been through. So obviously a lot of therapy during that time. I think that I think that George Floyd's murder like helped a lot of people who had just ignored their like white privilege and didn't really like think about it or talk about it in any sort of way. I think it prompted at least me and several of my friends to actually like start doing some of our own work and just realizing the part that we played in thinking about race relations and cultural humility and our own bias and all of those kinds of things. But I think then it was more, so I think those things played a part, but I think it was more our friendship on Marco Polo and how we began to like share those like intimate and vulnerable parts of ourselves and like connect through them as well. And I mean, I just could go back to, probably with every question here, I could go back to the Virginia Satir quote of like, you know, that we connected so much through our sameness, but that there was also this like openness to having the differences, like to really feel them, you know, and navigate through them. And it's not like we had a lot of talks about race. I don't even know that we had any talks about race. It was more like I felt like I was doing some of my own work, and then I was like noticing things in a different way. You know, one of the ways I think I would talk about it is like, you know, Bowen's concept of differentiation of self, in the sense, you know, differentiation of self. I've gone through this with my husband. I continue to go through this in my marriage. Is just like, how can you be a full and complete person in yourself? And what that allows you to do is free up the other person to be a whole and complete version of their selves. So, you know, my husband can be a little eccentric. He's like singing loudly down the grocery store aisles. I'm like, stop. Like, don't. But, you know, what I've started to notice is like, that's not about you, Rachel. He gets to do whatever he wants to do. He can be wholly himself. And me kind of getting to a place of being wholly myself frees that up, you know? And I think the same thing happened for us. Honestly, I think the more that I became like just whole in myself, I didn't feel offended or bothered, or like if you were talking about an experience that you had, it didn't matter if I didn't have the same experience, because it was your experience and I could listen to that without kind of self-referencing, well, how would this be for me? So those are some of my thoughts. I mean, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I, you know, wholeheartedly agree with the fact that it took us doing our own work to even be able to hold space for, you know, what was different about us. And, you know, I think that and to grow from what's different about us. So, you know, I know that, you know, when we first were working together, we liked each other. I mean, like we laughed, there was just like so much fun that we had. And we were both experiencing deeply hard shit that I don't even know that I would have been, you know, a good friend to anybody new, you know, at that in my life. But I do just remember that in that deeply hard shit, you were still yourself. Like, we had our miscarriage, you sent us food, which was like, and literally no one has ever done that before. And so to experience so deeply painful, and someone that I had known you maybe a couple of months at that point, who was also my boss, was also showing such deep care. I was like, I like that about her. And, we gotta deal with this. Right. The other thing that I thought was like really another thing I just kind of like held on to, was, we eventually got pregnant pretty shortly after the miscarriage. And I had this craving for goldfish or Teddy Grahams. I always get them mixed up, but whatever it was, you would have it waiting as when I came in to work. And I was just like, this person is so thoughtful of me. And that's not an experience that I had outside of like friends that like, most of my friend group are Black women. And so, yeah, thoughtful Black women, I know happen. Right. But I had not experienced that, and that closeness that I was like, okay, this is a caring, thoughtful, empathetic woman who is caring about me, who is caring for me and not expecting me to care for her, or like, that there's no care at all. And then the third thing was, which is another important thing, is that, the first book that Cameron ever got was, while I was pregnant with her. And I don't know if it was intentional, but the mommy on the book was a brown woman. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I don't know. We've never talked about this. I don't know if that was like intentional. I don't know if it was thoughtful, but I had just been thinking about the fact that, I needed to make sure that like, when I sent out the registry and things like that, that I was specific about making sure that, Cameron had books that represented her. And that was not something that I had to explain to you. So it was always something that I paid attention to. The differences between us was something that we never really had to talk about. Yeah. When George Floyd was murdered, we talked about it, but the way that you held space without being defensive, without like, rejecting, my experience, the vulnerability of, having a husband who's, 6'3" and, dark-skinned Black man, and being able to say that openly, and the fear that I felt, you never rejected that. And so that being able to engage in such vulnerable times together without having to talk about like, why are you like so open to, like, we never had to have that. I never said, you never used our friendship as an opportunity to, or at least I never noticed an opportunity to like, have me teach you how to be a friend to a Black woman.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, like, I don't know if
that's so kind. I have to say, okay, first of all, it was Teddy Grahams, and it wasn't completely altruistic because I love Teddy Grahams. So I was like, oh, Carla needs Teddy Grahams. Shucks. Let's get every flavor and just have them here.
That's amazing.
Oh, yeah, those are so good. I think just even as I'm thinking about like if we were going to like recommend or say like part of like how if you wanted to, incorporate more interracial friendships into your life, I think one piece that we've already talked about is just the importance of like doing your own work first, right? Because and like also like, I don't know, being willing maybe to like fail a lot of times and getting it wrong and noticing that, at least that's because I want to just, you gave like a lot of really nice examples, but that didn't come from me like without my own like fuck ups. Sure. I was thinking last night, I was like, what? When did I not get it right? And I don't know, for 40 years before that, right? And I was thinking about one of
Sure.
my friends, James, that was in Chattanooga, and he came over for dinner one night, and we were like eating. This was like years ago, like 7, 8 years ago, and we were eating on our porch with a big group of people, like from my neighborhood. He was the only black man, only black person, and I asked him some sort of like cringe-worthy question about, I use the phrase, the African American community. And like, I remember his face. I remember the faces of other people. Like and I'll tell you why that was wrong to our listeners. You probably are like, I know what that, like, it's like the most like obvious form of othering. Like,
Sure.
hi,
Sure.
James. You're not just here with us enjoying a dinner. What do you think about the chicken? It's like, tell me your thoughts on the African American community of Chattanooga, And like, it just was so rude, unkind, like unthoughtful, like thoughtless, And of course, we talk a lot in like DEI type conversations of like intent versus impact. It's not just, your intent can be totally good, but the way that I always hear that described is like, if you're on a subway and you stand on somebody's foot and you hurt them, you can't just say, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hurt you. Like, you did hurt the person though. So it doesn't matter that you didn't intend to hurt you. It's the fact that you kind of have to be like, are you
Sure.
okay? I have hurt you, the intent doesn't
Sure.
really matter, right? So, like, thinking about how many examples there are for me of that, where I was like, so like, where I just got it wrong, and I probably caused hurt and damage. And I'm sure James felt like, I mean, luckily James was like, what the fuck are you talking about, Rachel? Or something like that. Like, he was able to be like, that was weird. And, like, so I was able to see the immediate impact. But like, I'm sure that there have been many times that I have
Sure.
had that kind of impact where the person didn't speak up. And it was just like another time that they felt unseen, unheard, like that, or othered.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. I think in addition to that, I think, most often racialized, communities are, expected that one person, a representative, a person who's supposed to be a representative has to speak for a community. It also takes away the diversity within the community that Black people are not a monolith, but I think that happens as we don't pay attention to our own responsibility in our language and in conversations. So I think that, like, of course, what you're saying is that, I am reaping the benefits of most of, a lot of times where you have gotten it wrong. And I think that, I too can see where, I've gotten it wrong too, where even maybe there were even spaces within our friendship conversations that we could have had, that we, could have shared differently. And I think that that's part of like the humanity of it all. That, we are a collection of experiences, and when we do our own work, we get to actually try something different. We get to grow and say like, okay, that was a really awkward experience, or I was in a friendship where I was in friendships where I wasn't seen. How do I not get myself back into friendships where I'm not seen, but also not just say like, I don't want to be in friendships with white women.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, what can be different? And I think that the self-work for me was, around like people pleasing, like if someone, just as with, James, if someone were to say that to me, do I say like James did, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, not only am I not going to teach you that what's wrong with that, but like, no, I'm not going to be placed into that, that situation. And that can bring closeness between people. But most importantly, it can show that, whatever the awkwardness and the difficulty of talking about race is between, within interracial friendships and relationships, there's also a part of saying like, no, ouch,
Yeah.
absolutely not. I'm not going to hold this pain, by myself. You're going to know about it.
I'm just curious, do you feel like you have the, do you feel like you are able to do that in most of your friendships to say ouch?
Um, I think now that I can. I think that I have always struggled with saying it in the moment,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like I probably, again, that's probably one of the things that, I'm working on in therapy and have been for a bit, is like how to actually, operate in a place of like, I also have a voice too.
Mm-hmm.
Which, as a Black woman, we're often socialized that that's not the case. And so in all relationships and all, friendships, I have struggled with, actually saying what it is in the moment. Um, but but I think that the ouch and saying that communicating that in some way has always been something that I like challenge myself to do.
Yeah. And also something that, like, I guess also isn't your responsibility to do, right? Like, even if James didn't respond that way, I could
Sure.
feel it, and I was like at least tuned into the fact of like, and maybe that kind of comes more from like the therapist of like being able to pick up on things, but I think that that's a good opportunity for people to do their own work around noticing like the context of the
Right.
situation there, and like being not just oblivious to how your words have impacted another person. I think that's it's an important thing to do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think you kind of just talked about this with James, but a little bit, more specifically. I'm wondering if you can recall a specific moment or experience where within an, interracial friendship, in a relationship with someone who doesn't share the same racial identity, that it led to like a positive impact or change in your perspective of like the value of diversity, and even having friendships that, where people don't look like you, or people, love differently than you.
Yeah. I mean, our friendship has definitely done that for me. I could point to a million situations there, but I think that one of the ones that came to mind, it's not interracial, it's like intercultural because it's with a Jewish family. When, I think that there was like a real coming of age for me of leaving the South where I was born and raised, lived in Chattanooga, Tennessee, went to school in East Tennessee. Almost everybody, like everybody in my world was white, cisgender, heterosexual. I mean, like,
Yeah.
there were very few examples of any sort of diversion from that, even though there probably were diversions from that, especially like I would say in like gender identity or sexual orientation, but it wasn't spoken about really. And then moved to LA, and I move in. I'm a live-in nanny with a Jewish family, Howard and Amber, who just became my family. And that was such a like a timely, because it was like coming of age, 22 years old, like moment for me, because I just like, there's no other way to say it except that I just like fell in love with them. Like they were like the most meaningful, wonderful people in my life. And I know I've talked a little bit about my like, winding road with religion, but I was raised in a world that would say that they are going to hell, just to say it just
Sure.
like it is. That's the world that I was, and to have this like unbelievable connection, especially Amber and I, as we spent day in and day out with her two twins and her little girl, and shared stories about everything and our upbringing. There was so much sameness there, but then there were so many differences, as there was in all of LA. I mean, that's what was so great. Honestly, if I were to like tell my nieces and nephews something, I'd be like, after college, like go somewhere different so that
Yeah.
you can experience just something different, and I think that's because it does create like a really beautiful condition for growth and opportunity, and your eyes being widened, And I mean, I can compare that to a friendship I had in elementary school. There was like, again, very white, very Bible Belt, very religious, upbringing that I had. And I can remember one of my friends, literally one of my friends in my elementary school was Jewish, and everybody else was like Christian. Like it's like a cultural thing, right? In the South, you just are Christian, But like, I remember feeling the burden to like evangelize to her, like, to be like, oh, Ashley, don't go that way. You need to come here with us, and to fast forward to that and see how it was different with Howard and Amber of like, they have a beautiful faith and they are like the kindest, most wonderful, and I have no desire to change them. I only have the desire to like be with them, like learn from all the other things that they have to teach me. They're both in LMFTs as well. So lots of great conversations, and the sameness definitely brought us together, but their differences taught me that like my upbringing wasn't right. Like it wasn't wrong. It wasn't wrong or right, and neither were theirs, I don't know.
And the beauty, like that's such an important part. The beauty of culture is something that we sometimes decide to be scared of. I think that we're socialized to be scared of it because of the differences, and also because of like, really negative experiences, like, Black people in the United States have really, all over the world, have really negative, bad, oppressive experiences. And so there is this, there's this part of it, there's this like deep pain that comes with talking about race with people who don't share the same pain and who we can see evidence may not understand it.
Yeah.
And so that's not just, I think that, BIPOC in general, there are lived experiences, there are racialized experiences that often are misunderstood and unseen. And so, it makes sense for us to retreat into a group of people who we don't have to explain.
Yeah.
But when you are able to find meaningful friendships where you kind of get to like share the beauty, and that person is, open to seeing it as beautiful too, along with, who they are as well. It is really a restorative, transformative like experience.
Almost in some ways, like more meaningful, I want to say, I mean, like in the sense that like it helps you, it's enriching, opens your eyes in like new and different ways that I think are just, I don't know, really interesting and has like really been a beautiful part like of my life, so I'm curious, in kind of follow up to that, like conversations that you've navigated around race and ethnicity with your interracial friends, how does that look like with a white woman versus friends who share your race, especially like sensitive type topics?
Yeah. So, one of the things that, I just said that I'll kind of expand on a little bit more is, when I am talking to Black people about just my life, right? I don't have to like add in what it's like to experience this thing as a Black woman, right? I think of that as, with my therapist as well. Like I set out to find a Black woman as my therapist because I didn't want to have to explain, certain things. Also, I think that when you have shared experiences of pain and trauma, the, empathy and compassion is like automatic almost, right? Like if I'm talking to someone who can not only envision themselves, like attempt to understand by putting themselves in my shoes, but actually have somewhat been in my shoes, or their own shoes are so very similar to my own that they don't have to like, there's not extra work for them to empathize and have compassion, or simply to believe me, to believe that I have this pain, and to see it, and to even be able to add descriptors to it that I can't come up with myself when words fail me, is such an experience that I think, especially for therapy, but also for a long time in my friendships, that I was looking for and that I needed, and that's what safety is to me, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that there is also the ability to have empathy, and to be able to like hold pain and to believe someone about their lived experiences without also sharing that. And that's where the growth came for me around difference. It being in friendships and relationships with people who also have other racialized experiences, who are not Black, but have racialized experiences that are not mine.
Yeah.
Having multiracial friends or biracial friends who have a different racialized experience than I do. I think that the growth was only able to happen because we kind of both were able to, and this happens in our friendship, we're both able to like, sit back and like the work is in like leaning in and listening, and the empathy is there, the compassion is there. Maybe the knowledge of that of your experience isn't there because there's differences, but there's an openness, there is a safety that I actually don't have to sit and explain something to you. I don't have to say like, when I went to the DMV here, and the guy, this older white man kept calling me girl. And it just so happened to be that I was responding to your Marco Polo, and I was still so like activated by this experience. And so I'm just like sharing it. I'm just saying that it happened. I didn't have to explain why this white man calling me girl, and then the white man after me, sir and mister, was so activating to me. I didn't have to explain that to you, and you didn't say like, oh well, maybe he like there was none of that. I didn't have to bring my defenses to that conversation. And so that helps me grow and understand that safety can happen in friendships where we're not both Black, and so I appreciate that, and really am like I said, leaning into it. You're like one of 3 of my friends in my life, and it's very meaningful for a lot of reasons, but I think this is one of them. I don't have to do extra work.
Right. Yes.
To do elsewhere.
Yeah. And, I think that there is a piece of that too. It's just like then who does that work? Like I do, like that's my responsibility to do, to kind of notice those things. And to, I think about the fact that like, I'm trying to say this in a way that doesn't sound like do it like this, everybody else. But like, I feel like there is like this like piece of like, if you're noticing and paying attention and listening to and reading about like the experience of being Black in America, you'll see it, Right. And when I go to Target and I like see someone asking a Black woman in a red shirt for help, but that doesn't work in Target, you see it everywhere. It happens all around us, right?
Sure.
So like, then it's my responsibility to circle the store 5 times to make sure that I find someone who really works there, because it's an ouch, for Black women. If that's an ouch. And I want to be like, because it's so easy to be defensive and be like, oh, but she had a red shirt on, she looked like, that's just like that's what I assumed, and like to kind of like defend it. But it's like, no, if there's an ouch there, then you can go to the extra mile to making sure,
Absolutely. I love that point about like taking responsibility and doing the work, because that's exactly what it is. And as I think a therapist, one of the takeaways, from this conversation around building meaningful interracial relationships with clients. I mean, we can just take the friendships out.
Yep.
One thing that bridges, the two together is that it is our responsibility
That's right.
to do the extra work. And our clients are the experts of their experience. And so we can be curious and ask them questions, about their experience. We can, make sure that the questions that we have are honed in to who they are, what they're saying, how are they impacted by the experiences that they have. But if there's something missing, it is 100% our responsibility to go and learn more. Don't just read books. I don't know that people read books anymore. Don't just Google it. Don't just, talk to your friend who if you have a Black client, don't go talk to your Black friend, go and do the work of finding cultural experiences and understanding of the harm and the historical harm, but also the beauty. Like you have to be able to see both, and you have to know both outside of this one individual person. You can't just say like, it's this person that is beautiful.
Yep.
It is who they are, that is.
I love that you made that comparison, because I feel like clinicians who are listening can really like grasp that, in the sense that like in grad school, this is exactly what we were taught. There's whole courses in how to do your own work as the clinician, so that you can, be culturally humble, be curious for, the clients who come into your practice, so that you can be ready to like not do harm and to be like an open place. So I think that was a really good comparison. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think that we've actually gotten to the end of our questions. I was actually looking at them. We responded to all of them. I mean, I feel like that, that makes sense. We had a lot, I think, to say here. And I think what was really important was, like you said, that shift between like meaningful interracial friendships versus successful. Because even today, I feel like, we always, say this, but, we'll come back to this in a year and be grown into something even different than we are today.
Yeah.
And we will be like, oh yeah, we said that on our podcast, and maybe we should have said it differently. And that's the growth of it all, right? Like the places where there's hesitation, even to say, Black or racialized words, or to identify somebody's racial identity, to even like, challenge, or to ask a question, or to point out what has failed, and to not just like focus on the growth. Definitely focus on the growth, but also to say like, what has grown, what's different, and how did that happen, so that we can replicate it.
One of my favorite things you said too, that I think is just like such a good call out to remember is, Black people are not a monolith, and you can just like insert any diverse, population there, and say like, don't use your one, Indian friend as your, I have a very close Indian friend, Samantha, and I don't bring to her questions about her culture or ethnicity. I'm like, it's my responsibility, I feel like, as her friend, to know that I see her wholly, but then to also like be doing my own work around, cultural differences that I need to be aware of and cautious of,
Yeah, absolutely. And like, I think immersive experiences are life-changing outside of what they do for the people in your life, like how you show up to people, how you connect to people is one thing. But I think also, you pointed out like opening your eyes and what you would suggest to your nieces and nephews, like go and immerse yourself in other people's worlds and other people's differences.
That's right.
Because that's how you get to see, the whole experience. And then you get to see whole people.
Yeah,
You get
that's
to
right.
see them as what's amazing about them. You also get to hear them and believe them when they tell you that they have painful experiences based on who
Yep.
they are.
I love that. I love that. Whew, so good. Good conversation. We should tee up next week. Tell us what we're talking about.
Yeah, we're gonna tee up our next episode because we're gonna take a few weeks off from our live. We have now like 14 episodes that people can definitely get caught up on. When we get back, we're going to talk about when shit hits the fan. Very ambiguous, but also I think everyone's like, oh yeah.
You know what? I just had the same thought. I'm like, for people who shit has hit the fan, they're like, yep, got that. I know. Yep. Either shit has hit the fan in your life or it hasn't. And if it hasn't, it probably will. But maybe not. I mean, but and if it has, the pain associated with something like that. Right. So we're going to talk about the real of that.
We're going to talk about that. And then just to mention that we're on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and you can watch the videos on YouTube. I finally did send the YouTube videos to my mom. So
all of them,
all of them, the whole channel, like just yesterday.
Yeah.
She was like, I was on Rachel's page and I saw little clips of them. So then I felt bad that I hadn't sent it to her. So I stopped what I was doing and sent it to her. So.
Well, she's team pineapple, so I already like her.
I feel like a lot of people are team pineapple, which, we'll argue about another time.
Yeah. In our differences, we grow. All right, my friend. I think we have a meeting to get to. We should go.
We do.
Okay. I'll see you next time.
Okay. All right.